私はそこで悲しんでたの。あんなに綺麗ですごく気持ちがいい風の中で。
Hi, and welcome to the Experience Podcast. My name is Dennis, and today with me
I am a multi-dimensional being having a human experience. My name is Neil, and in today's topic, we want to get into speaking about and communicating about a new word that I learned for myself, and I found it very fascinating because of the exact scenario that I was in when I first encountered the word and how it was used in that scenario. And also how it relates to present day circumstances. And the word that I'm speaking about is called obfuscation. And the definition of obfuscation is the action of making something obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. That's like as a noun. And as a verb, it's like to make something obscure. And obscure is a synonym to the word obfuscation. And what do you have for the definition of obscure, Dennis?
so the definition of obscure is in the adjective form, it says not discovered or known about, uncertain. And for the verb, it says keep from being seen or concealed.
So, and in the exact circumstances that, like, I first encountered this word, was at a workplace setting, and it was being used as a misdirection to a direct question. So basically, a question was presented, and rather than giving a direct answer, the answer was obfuscated and kind of
Deflected.
deflected the question, but not even so much deflected, just basically made it unclear with the answer and unintelligible to the person asking the question.
So they didn't answer the question.
Correct. And it was a clear definition of obfuscation. And that was when I first encountered it. And then at that time, the owner of the company, he brought up the word, and I didn't know what the word meant, but he invited us to look it up. So I looked it up after the fact, and that's when I kind of had this realization of like, wow, this ties directly into present day circumstances and like how the media is portraying the situation in this country as well as in other countries. So, Dennis, how do you see that playing out in the media specifically?
Well, if you watch the media and but you really turn your volume down low, or even you don't even have to turn your volume low, but what you'll find is if you just observe very carefully, you'll find that if the media is talking and they ask a question, they never answer that question. Because if they would answer that question, then their job would be done and they would no longer have a job. So they're obfuscating all the fucking time. They deflect. They're masters at concealing the truth. So all this time, throughout the time that I've been alive and throughout the time that most people have been alive that are my age, they have been obfuscating the truth. And finally, people are starting to recognize and realize that they no longer can obfuscate the truth because we're in the time in the cosmos and where we are on the timeline, that everything that has been obfuscated in the past is now coming to light. So that's kind of my um, my perception as far as the word used, the word obfuscation and how it's used today.
Mhm.
What about you? What are you?
I want to add something to how you were saying how like what was being obfuscated is being brought to light
Sure.
and being exposed and being brought to the surface, and like people now are beginning to understand that it has been an obfuscation. And kind of where I'm going with this is when you bring light into darkness, the darkness goes away. When you like bring truth into lies, the lies go away. And that's exactly what's happening in the present day situation. And another thing that goes right along with that is when you bring love into fear, all fear goes away. So that's what's beginning to happen on a worldwide scale. And the truth is being brought out. And when the truth is brought out, lies just disappear. They're no longer valid. They were valid until the truth is being brought into the space that they're in. And Ralph Smart brought up a very important point just recently, and the point was that no two opposing forces of nature can be in the exact space and time at the same time. So so when you embody love and you walk into a room, you bring love with you, and the fear leaves because you are the love.
And before that, the fear would have just been an obfuscation of the love that was there in the first place.
Maybe. But what I'm getting at is like the truth is being brought out, and therefore the lies are just completely dissipating.
Yeah.
They don't hold merit anymore. So you were asking me how I see that with the media,
Yeah.
and it is very similar to your perception of it. Like we have a lots of people at this time of the year are getting the common cold, and like they're becoming sick, and a lot of people have um, illnesses that they themselves brought onto themselves via the foods that they eat, via the words that they're consuming, via the habits that they have throughout the day. And then the media brings about this coronavirus, and now these people that have the common cold and have other illnesses caused by their own habitual patterns have an excuse. And the excuse is that I have the coronavirus, so I get to sit on my ass. And the reality is you have the common cold and you have illnesses caused by your own habitual patterns. And what the media is doing is that they're obfuscating the reality that it is the common cold and that you have illnesses caused by you and not something outside of you. And they're obfuscating the truth, and they're saying that every single illness that a person has is SARS-CoV-19. And that's not the truth. That's a lie. So when you bring the truth now into the lie, and the truth is that the common cold still does exist, and it's being called COVID-19, and asthma exists, and it's being called COVID-19, tumors exist in people caused by themselves via their habitual patterns, and people occasionally die from tumors, and they're calling the death a death of COVID-19. So that is how I see the media obfuscating the truth, that people get sick based by their own habitual patterns that they do throughout the day. And they're obfuscating that truth and saying that every single sickness is COVID-19, and that's a lie. So that's how I see this play out in the media.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. So, obfuscation. And if we step back a little bit and we look at the whole world, or the big picture, this whole sickness slash, I'm just going to call it the sickness but what I'm talking about is the COVID-19. I'll just say it with the word C. But they've been obfuscating. They use that as a cover for what's really going on in this, what really the underlying problem is here, and that is our national debt. Our national debt is to the point where if they wouldn't be obfuscating it, they would be talking about it. But they're concealing it, they're hiding it, and they're using that as a cover for a way to destroy this country from within.
So how come no one is talking about national debt?
Because not hardly anybody knows who or where our money comes from or who prints it. And it's not a national institution. It's not federal, and it's not a reserve, because if you go there, it's not a federal institution, and they have zero reserves of dollars for the United States of America. It's all a house of cards, and it's nothing. It's fiat. We'll be using it for toilet paper and probably in the fireplace soon.
I totally feel that.
So that to me is how they're obfuscating. And the exciting thing is that people are seeing through the lies. I think in the last 2 years they've really
it's beginning to transform the individual, and by transforming the individual, it's beginning to transform other individuals and like the community around that, the people. So we have this media portraying, like obfuscating the reality of what's going on. And then we come to the individual, and how does this affect the individual on an individual level rather than the collective? So
And
why
talking
is this
specific-
important to the individual?
Now, are you talking specifically related to the word obfuscation still?
I am, yes, sir.
How obfuscation is related to the individual?
Well, what the media is obfuscating the truth, how does that affect an individual?
An individual.
You, how does that affect you when they obfuscate the reality of what is going on?
It depends how much attention I give to them, if I don't give them attention,
Very important
I don't.
point.
There's no way that it can affect me. I have noticed that I mean, if I do give my attention to the media, it can affect me.
In what way?
And it does not make me feel good.
So is the media affecting you, or are you affecting you and using the media to do it?
Yes. I'm allowing what I see, I'm taking that information into my own brain, and then that in turn is causing emotions that I do not like to feel.
Sure. So, like, there's a lot of people that have, they're in a situation that they don't want to be in, and they go to a job that they hate, only to come home and have very little energy to produce and work on the life that they want to create. So, in a sense, you could say that like a lot of people are suffering from from the environment that they're in, basically. And suffering comes from a perceived separation from God slash love, and God and slash love is all that there is. So literally there is no separation between you and God and all that there is. Like, you are a piece of Him. Therefore, the suffering is of your own creation. So rather than like asking why am I in this situation, or like why am I suffering, just begin to create joy and begin to create whatever you want to create. Let's say maybe more connection, more peace. What I'm getting at is you're creating your own suffering, and how to not have suffering is to stop creating it. And so then what do you create? What do you want to create? So now come from a place of creation of what you want to create and express. Do you want to add something to that?
Well, I was thinking when you were talking and talking about that, so the word obfuscation, how that relates to the individual. I feel like the ego obfuscates, and the ego survives in this 3D whatever this is that I see right now. And this whatever I see actually obfuscates, and people out here can't see the the ego obfuscates the true inner being of Dennis, and that is of love and peace and light and joy. And so, but the ego loves to obfuscate that with the structures around us, with the, like you were saying, the jobs. Is
That does make sense. I totally see where you're coming from.
I see I feel like on a personal level, we build that shell around us, but going through what we're going through, if we step back and we reflect and we look at ourselves from a third party perspective, and we're like, oh, I could do this because if I do this differently, that's who I really am.
Do you feel like that would be a confidence booster?
Absolutely. Because you're stepping into your true power, and I'd be stepping into who I really am.
Mm-hmm. So, like this, so we're in an energy right now of working on like the shadow side, and like, I don't know this exactly, but there's astrologers that can explain this way better than me, and I suggest that you go do your own research. But it's an energy of working on the shadow within yourself. And I've had things come up and insights come up for me, like just in the last 2 weeks. And I want to share one of those insights here. And what this insight was, I was just driving along the road and it was like a download into my brain. I was just like, holy crap, like this totally makes sense. And like, I feel like people could relate to this. And so what I realized is that there's this piece of me, you could call it darkness, you could call it the shadow, that would rather be dead than alive. And like, I do not fear death, rather, like, I welcome it. And coming from a place of now, I welcome death, and therefore, if you threaten me with death, I will embrace you. And so, coming from that place and coming from a place of welcoming death, I realized that I implemented habits and ways of doing things on a daily basis to help speed up the process of my own death. And this, I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, because there's this side of me, like in this moment right now, that has the option to choose life, or it has the option to choose death. And so, what am I really afraid of? And so, I'm not afraid of death. So, what I'm really afraid of is living and fully living to the fullest potential. And I feel like people can relate to this, even so much as smoking nicotine, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, being on Facebook for hours on end, distracting yourself, killing your mental capacity. That's choosing death. And these habitual patterns that we incorporate into our life, we have to transcend that to end the trance. And we have to realize, and it's a self-realization, no one can realize this for you. This is like the individual coming to this realization that in this moment, right now, I choose life. And that's the realization I had. Do you want to add something? Can you relate to it?
I can absolutely relate, absolutely, because there's been times where I've caught myself doing the same thing, and actually many times. I think, isn't it Marianne Williamson that says that it is not the darkness that scares us, but that we are powerful beyond measure, and that is what really scares us. And I think, like what you just said there, I'd like to kind of look it up, just because it's a very powerful quote.
And like, the universe is working in my favor, like every single day, in every moment of every day. And like, how do I know this? Is because I speak it, and I speak it into existence. And so, like, there's that. And then the thing about like coincidences, like so you have deaths in families, you have deaths in like among friends, you have situations that are not maybe the ideal situation that you would like to happen, but there's no coincidences or accidents in this universe, and everything happens for divine purpose. So therefore, everything is perfect that happens, good or bad. And there is no good or bad. There's only what works given what you're trying to accomplish. So with that, forgiveness is an illusion, because everything is already perfect. Like, so we live in a perfect world. And like so many people, and it's funny because I am so many people, and we go about and we perceive and we feel like we've got to fix something. We've got to fix ourselves. We've got to fix the world. But the world is perfect. And if it were not the way that it was, the way that you perceive the world and the way that you're ascending to higher levels of awareness would not be the way that it is. So it's a perfect world. Do you have something to with that?
I do. I would like to, if you're done with that,
Yes,
I'd love to
absolutely.
share this, what you were talking about, your fear. So Marianne Williamson, this is from her, Our Greatest Fear. I think it's a poem that she wrote, but it goes like this, quote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." Marianne Williamson.
That's beautiful. So the secret to getting started, to getting ahead, the secret to getting ahead is getting started. And that's a quote by Mark Twain. And so with that, I invite the viewer who's watching this to start a new habit today, a beneficial habit for you, and tell at least one person about this new habit that you started. And I also invite you to write it in the comments below, this new habit, or you can message me directly and tell me about this new habit that you started. And I would love to hear about it. So you can add my Snapchat at neilman25.
And my Snapchat is Dennis the Message without the E on the end.
Stay blessed, stay multidimensional, continue experiencing.
Peace.